Welcome to the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Benaker, your host, and my intention is to inspire you to find more joy in your life through the stories from our guests and the science on joy and purpose. Sonia, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Sonia, I absolutely loved your TEDx talk. And when you spoke about your story when you were younger and what inspired you to pursue a career in dentistry, I was wondering if you can share with our audience your story.
Yeah, so I had just graduated high school, and a little backstory here. I was born without 8 teeth. And so as I came into adulthood, it was time to kind of close up all the gaps. So the summer I graduated high school, I was at the dentist almost like every week, and I was restoring my occlusion essentially. A little bit after that, I started to develop some pain in my mouth, and it was very vague. I couldn't really pinpoint it. I didn't really know, how to describe it. And so I went to my dentist, and he told me he couldn't see anything. And this story kind of went on for about 9 months or so, where nobody could really identify where my problem was coming from. And then my problem got so bad, and to the point where I was starting to swell and I had a fever, and they knew they had to do something. And so they sent me to get my tooth extracted. And so I went to get my tooth extracted because I thought that was going to be the only thing to get me out of pain. I got my tooth out. I didn't realize I could save it because nobody told me that I could save it. And they took my tooth out. But the problem was, once the anesthesia wore off, I still had my toothache. So they actually had identified the wrong tooth as the culprit and took out another tooth. So I was missing a lot of teeth at this point. And after that, I was referred to an endodontist. And an endodontist is a root canal specialist, AKA I like to call them tooth savers. And he was able to actually save the problem tooth and restore me back into health and make me smile again, because I definitely was not smiling for those 9 months. And he really taught me a big lesson. He taught me a lesson on trusting my body. He taught me a lesson on patient education, which was really important to me at the time. And that whole event in my life is what catapulted me into my career, because now I'm an endodontist.
How beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Many people experience anxiety or fear when visiting the dentist. How do you strive to create an environment that fosters feelings of joy and comfort for your patients?
Yeah, I think making sure that I'm always approaching that environment from a good energy and a good vibration is number one. Being kind and just, I think knowledge is really power when it comes to being in the dentist's office, because the more we can educate our patients, I feel like people just want to know. And when they can understand what's happening to them or what's going to happen to them, and you can really explain it in a way that's comforting, A, it's a pain reliever, and B, it's an anxiety reliever. And when everyone is on the same page and there's a deep understanding of what's going to happen, it just makes the whole procedure go smooth.
And ultimately, you're helping people regain their smile, regain joy. Is there a specific story that you can share with us that particularly has touched you?
I mean, this could be every day in my practice, because I deal with toothaches, right? As an endodontist, I do root canals. Root canals alleviate patients' pain. So many of my patients come in, they have a toothache, they haven't slept in days. It really changes a person's personality when you start to not sleep for several days. And it's so nice to actually, like, once you get somebody numb and they're just finally pain-free, and then they relax to the point where they just fall asleep, right? And you know that they're happy because they're finally getting some sleep. So I feel like we're not just pain relievers or tooth savers. We're actually we recreate joy for people in their lives.
It actually goes so much beyond the experience of joy in that specific moment when you're taking away the pain. there's many studies that have shown the strong correlation between oral health and overall health. Can you share with our audience some specific facts that you've come across in your practice?
Yeah, so even though I'm an endodontist and I just do root canals, there everything is connected inside. And there's many documented studies that show that periodontal disease is connected to cardiovascular disease. So when we can maintain good oral health, good oral hygiene, it really does impact the rest of our bodies. You know, we can connect it to mental health as well. Again, just as I was saying, when we're not feeling good, when we have pain in our mouths, it will impact our personalities. It will impact our mental health. So it can have a systemic effect and it can have a mental effect. So really taking care of our pearly whites is one of those things. And it's an easy thing to do to really keep whole body wellness.
And what are some specific tips that you share with your patients to actually maintain optimal oral health?
I mean, it's very easy to stay out of my chair. I think prevention is one of the easiest ways to stay out of my chair specifically. I tell people, I'm like, I really should be just there in case of an accident or trauma because I do a lot of trauma cases. But if you brush your teeth twice a day, if you floss once a day, and if you go to your regular checkups, that'll take care of about 80% of your issues and will pretty much keep you out of my chair. Because then your dentist, your general dentist, can actually find things while they're small and not after the point of no return where you need somebody like me to intervene.
You've also shared in your TEDx talk a very interesting tip for parents that may have a child that could be, playfully doing something fun and all of a sudden they hit something and their tooth falls out. I'd love for you to share the tips that you have shared in your TEDx talk because I thought as a parent, I
Yeah.
wish I would have known this years and years ago because it
Right.
is something that can actually happen. So please tell us more details on what to do in these extreme cases, instead of panicking to actually take the proper measures to actually save the beautiful teeth that we have.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is information that I hope nobody needs, but when you need it, it's usually probably like the most random time in your life, right? And it's just a freak accident. Maybe your children are just playing outside, or maybe you're at a sporting event and your child's on the field and something happens where the front tooth comes out. This can happen to a child or an adult. So, this is really good information for everybody, but it's still crazy to me that school nurses don't know this information, parents don't talk about it at like PTA meetings. It's really something that should be well known. So that's part of the reason I love to get on these shows, is because I love to share this information. So let's say your front tooth gets knocked out, right? The number one thing people are going to do is panic, because it's a traumatic thing to get up off the ground and realize you're missing your front tooth. What I want to urge everyone to do is not panic. And time is of the essence here. So if you can actually find the tooth and be brave enough to put it back in. Now, if you feel like it's dirty, okay, some people are going to have the instinct to run that tooth underwater. That's not what you want to do. You either want, number one thing you can clean it with is Hank's balance salt solution, but let's face it, like nobody has that stuff laying around their house. So the next best thing is milk. You actually want to rinse it with milk. You don't want to scrape it clean. You barely want to touch it. You just want to handle it by the crown. So the white part that you see when you smile, you don't want to touch the root. You want to pick up the tooth by the crown, the white part. If it's dirty for some reason, because it's probably soiled with something, maybe it landed in a soccer field, right? You want to rinse it with milk, but not scrape it. There's these really important fibers on the tooth that are, we want to keep them alive. We don't want to scrape them off or anything, because they're going to be what allow the tooth to reattach into the bone. If you can get that tooth back into the socket in under an hour, under 30 minutes is even better, but in under an hour, that's going to give you the best prognosis. The body won't even like really realize that the tooth was missing in the first place. But most people, when this happens, they panic. They look for the tooth. They don't know what to do with the tooth. They just put it in a Ziploc bag and they go to the emergency room. And unfortunately, at the emergency room, they don't really know how to handle this type of situation. This is, as long as there's no other big like fractures or other big injuries, you want to really go to your dentist or even an endodontist, because we deal with this type of trauma quite a bit. And the first thing we're going to do is just make sure the tooth is nicely in the socket and stabilized. We won't do any treatment at that visit. We'll just make sure you stabilize, and then you would need a root canal in that moment, not in that exact moment, but in the next couple weeks around that event. But the key is getting that tooth back in as quickly as possible and not panicking. I tell people, you know, with video conversations now, you know, you could FaceTime your dentist and they can walk you through it at the scene and then get you stabilized there. And then you can go with ease in the car to the dentist instead of trying to deal with everything once you get to the destination. Try to do what you can where you are, so we have the best possible prognosis because of that time factor.
Thank you so much for sharing. I said I was not aware of this, and I think it's just such valuable insights that not many people know about. And even the whole capacity of thinking, okay, I'm going to put the teeth back and everything will regenerate, of course, you know, after certain steps and the root canal, is, as you mentioned, and so on. But I think it's just fascinating that we forget about our body's capacity to regenerate, to regrow bone, and so on. And I was wondering if you can talk a little bit more about that as well, please.
Yeah, so it's funny because I think there's a big group of people who love to biohack, right? And they hack their way into wellness. But there's also something that I like to call bioflow, because there's a lot that already exists within us, and if we just allow it. And so, for example, when we get a tooth infection, it can start to eat away our bone. If we leave that tooth infection long enough, the bone actually starts to erode away as a response to that infection. When you do a root canal, you not only save your tooth by doing the root canal, but you can actually regenerate the bone. So once the culprit, which is the bacteria, is actually removed out of the tooth, now the bone and all that environment can start to heal. And our instinct to heal is to just regenerate all that bone. And it's interesting because there's a lot of bad press about root canals. But if you don't do a root canal well, it won't serve you. So you really have to have a well done root canal that follows the cardinal rules of root canal therapy. So you have to find every canal and get to the end of every canal. So you have to follow some rules. But when you do follow the rules, that therapy can actually be super regenerative. And again, you grow your bone back, which is, it is probably one of the neatest things that I ever show my patients when I show them their before and after. Now, you have to also give it time. You have to give it about a year after your treatment to really see the evidence of the growing. So if you just go back like 2 weeks later, you're not going to see the evidence. You have to give the time for your body to be in flow. And then you'll see 1 year later, we bring all our patients back so that we can see the evidence. And then we see that the whole bony area has been totally restored.
I was wondering if you could share with us, outside of the world of dentistry, what brings you joy?
Oh my gosh. I love to just have fun. I love to dance. I love to dance. I love to hang out with my friends and family. And I love to see the world and experience new places and try new foods and meet new people. I would say those are the three things that really get me going.
If we're going back now to your career, and I know that you're a board certified dentist, what advice would you give to some young dentists or young aspiring dentists to reach similar milestones as you have in your career?
So, I mean, I am so happy that I've put myself out there. I'm so happy that I've actually taken a lot of action. A lot of times that could be daunting, and it may some people, even sometimes myself, not want to do a thing, but really do what makes your heart sing. And you have one life, so take advantage of it, live it to the fullest, take risks, but also make sure that joy is front and center. Like, it's easy to become a workaholic. It's easy to get lost in your practice. Make sure that joy comes first and try to balance everything out after that, like behind that. And then I think you'll see life can be extremely fulfilling.
And are there specific practices that you do day in and day out to actually cultivate more joy and positivity in your daily life, both in the office as well as in your free time?
Yeah, I mean, intentional scheduling with people and friends for connection and love is really important. Before I'm done with one vacation, I'm always scheduling the next one. I want to have something to look forward to. And also making sure that I schedule days of rest is really important for me.
Okay, so tell us about some of your most enjoyable travels, the different countries you've been to. What is one of your favorites or that brought you the most awe and wonder and joy?
Yeah, let's see. I have a tendency to love Europe, anywhere in Europe. I mean, Italy is always a great one, but we just actually got back from India this past Christmas. We spent 3 weeks in India, and it was really nice to take my family back to see their heritage and their roots.
Amazing. And as you're talking about your heritage and your roots, can you share with us what you have learned as a result of your culture and your travels about joy?
Yeah, it's funny. I got one of these sets of cards, like conversation cards for our dinner table. And I have 3 children, right? And so I pulled out one of the cards at dinner the other day and I said, "What is one thing that I've done for you in this life that has brought you joy?" And I asked that to my 3 children, and they said, "Taking us around the world and like exploring all these places and giving us these amazing experiences." And that's when I realized how important it was to press pause on work and really, detach from all the daily grind and take time that you can really intentionally connect with your family and take them away so that they can learn. Like, they don't always have to learn in school, right? They can learn on the road. And I'm so happy that they really cherish those moments just as much as I do.
I truly understand what you're saying. We have the same joys with our children, and the world travels have been just so delightful, not only from a bonding perspective, being together, sharing incredible experiences together, but it's also opened their eyes and their minds and their hearts, I would say, to
Yeah,
understanding the world in a different way, to
exactly.
having a sense of curiosity that can then be brought back into everyday life. And it's just incredible to see. So I'm so happy that you have shared that. How old are your kids? I'm curious.
I have a 13-year-old girl, an 11-year-old girl, and an 8-year-old boy.
All right. So beautiful, beautiful ages. So, Sonia, what is the best piece of advice that you have ever received in your life today that has really shaped how you look at what is really most important on this journey?
I would say it's a recent lesson, actually. The lesson of letting go and surrender and, just really going with the flow of life and trusting that everything's going to be okay.
Are those some of the same lessons that you're instilling within your children? That despite challenges, adversities that come their way, that they need to continue standing up and moving forward?
Yeah, because it can be quite frustrating, or, just I can be very type A, always in control and having that need to be in control. But really allowing myself to let go of that has been so freeing and liberating, especially in this phase of my life.
There's a lot of talk about AI and technology that will tremendously shape the future for many industries. I was wondering if you could share with us your views on how technology or potentially even AI may shape the world of dentistry.
I mean, we definitely already have AI applications in our industry. There are certain, programs that allow us to detect cavities on x-rays a little bit more efficiently. It's definitely in its baby stages right now. I'm pretty hopeful that it's actually going to get better because I think that's actually going to support us. I don't know if anything will actually eliminate what I do. I'm not really sure. I feel like the way I want to look at AI is in a supportive fashion as opposed to like eliminating, my job or getting rid of this and that. I really think in the medical world, I think it could be really supportive for sure.
What is one thing that most people would be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, that's interesting. I think it's funny because I feel like it's easy to misunderstand me. It's easy to see me as a, just this hardworking, entrepreneurial, like dentist. But I can actually be really lazy. And I love that about myself. I love that I can really work really hard and not work at all.
And you mentioned earlier how much you love to dance in your lazy moments. Let's just call them like that. Do you get the chance to dance, especially with your kids or with your family members? Is that something that is an activity that you enjoy together?
Sometimes for sure. I mean, I'll just do it by myself if I have to, but I love it. I grew up dancing. I have always encouraged my daughters to dance, and I just love it, and I'm going to continue to do it as long as I am still walking.
Is there a specific type of dance that you enjoy more than others?
Well, I grew up doing, all sorts of stuff like contemporary dance and jazz and stuff like that. But then I also kind of graduated into doing a lot of Bollywood dancing. So that's what I really love to do. And then my daughters, that's what they do now. So I kind of live vicariously through them and watch them do their performances. But I secretly still do that in my bedroom when no one's looking.
So, Sonia, as a final closing point, would you have any final tips for our audience on living a joyful existence and maintaining their beautiful smiles?
Of course. I mean, brush those pearly whites, right? Do that twice a day. Floss those puppies. See your dentist and show them off. Like, really, when you smile, smile big. Show the world that you believe in joy and try to make that your number one priority every single day of your life.
Wonderful. Well, Sonia, it's been such a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for your time and look forward to staying in touch.
Yes, thank you so much. I love being on here. Thank you so much.